Warren, I know I was wrong. Can't you just turn around and look at me? The woman speaking was Sophie Quinn, known in the legal community as the Ice Queen of a Chicago bar. My ex-wife. The people who hurt you. I made sure they all paid in the worst way possible. Can't you just forgive me this one time? Looking at the stunning woman, her face a tragic, beautiful mess streaked with tears, I felt absolutely nothing. The person who hurt me the most was you. Sophie and I met at the University of Chicago Law School. I was a year ahead of her. She was the campus knockout, but she never had a crowd of guys chasing her. Maybe it was her personality. That pathological empathy of hers was more than most people could handle. She was a staunch vegan, claiming she couldn't bear the thought of hurting little animals. To get enough protein and fat, she'd load up on tofu and nuts, and would only eat eggs if she could personally verify they were unfertilized. What drove people crazy, though, was that she didn't just abstain herself. She tried to guilt everyone around her into doing the same. And despite her family being well off, she was always broke before the end of the month, surviving on instant ramen. It turned out she spent more money on stray animal shelters than she did on herself. But the craziest part? Here was a law student who sympathized with everyone, no matter the circumstances. While everyone else kept their distance, I was drawn to her kindness. I started pursuing her hard. My roommates, guys I was tight with, all tried to talk me out of it. Warren, man, are you blind? Do you have any idea what Sophie Quinn is really like? Get involved with a bleeding heart like that, and you're just asking for trouble. I just smiled, brushing it off. That's not being a bleeding heart. That's compassion. You don't find girls with that much love in them anymore. Don't even try to sell me that crap. One of them shot back. You're not into her compassion. You're just horny and she's hot. Brenda, the building supervisor, is the kindest person on the planet, and I don't see you chasing after her. Get real, man. Brenda's son is almost my age. My friend saw it was like talking to a brick wall and eventually gave up. We got married the year after I graduated. After the wedding, she was still the same, dedicating her life to charity cases and volunteering. And I was right there behind her, her rock, making sure she could do whatever she wanted without a single worry. After our wedding, I clerked at a firm for a year to learn the ropes. Between that and the network I'd built in school, I decided to hang my own shingle. It wasn't easy at first. I was young, arrogant, and running on nothing but raw ambition and an unshakable belief in my own abilities. In the beginning, the clients were a trickle, mostly small-time consultations and divorce cases. I hustled, running marketing campaigns on LinkedIn and Facebook, cold-calling businesses to ask if they needed legal services. Slowly, I started landing corporate clients, mostly handling debt collection. The firm grew steadily. But the case that put me on the map was a food safety lawsuit. A major organic dairy brand, one of the trusted ones, was found to have dangerously high levels of antibiotics in their milk. It was causing weakened immune systems and developmental delays in countless children who drank it every day. The story first broke on a local news channel, then it exploded on TikTok and Instagram Reels. The outrage was off the charts, and I took the case. It was my chance to make a name for myself. For over a month, our entire firm pulled all-nighters. We met with dozens of families, listening to their stories, collecting evidence, researching precedent, and crafting our strategy. The hard work paid off. We won a massive victory. Every single family received a substantial settlement. The dairy company went bankrupt, and I became a nationally recognized lawyer, fielding calls from all over the country. The firm expanded again and again. Just as I was riding high, ready to take on the world, my own world caught fire. It started the day a new client walked into my office. Her name was Chloe Davis, and she was there because of an inheritance dispute. Her father had been owed money from the North Shore, a real local institution whose wife had passed away years ago. He owned entire blocks of apartment buildings, not units, buildings. The two of them were pulling in 6 figures a month in rent alone. Feeling sorry for her lonely father, Chloe had hired him a live-in caretaker. From that day on, it was like her father had been body snatched. He became obsessed with marrying the caretaker and refused to even consider a prenup. At first, he listened to Chloe's concerns, but then his health took a sharp decline. His mind started going. Some days he'd recognize his daughter, and on bad days, he'd lash out, accusing her of trying to steal his money. A month ago, while Chloe was on a business trip, she got the call. Her father was dead. His body had already been cremated. The news hit her like a ton of bricks. She was in such shock, she couldn't even drive and had to take an Uber back. By the time she got home, the funeral was over. After a painful, private visit to his grave, she tried to contact the caretaker to find out what happened, but the woman had vanished. Then, at the end of the month, Chloe went to collect the rent as usual. The tenants told her they'd already paid. A little digging revealed that the caretaker had shown up a few days earlier and collected everything. Chloe called the police immediately. They brought the caretaker in for questioning, but she walked in holding the property deeds and a marriage certificate. With no other options, Chloe was referred to me. I was just getting the lay of the land, ready to dive into the details with her when her phone rang. The already worried expression on her face twisted into panic. "What? I'm on my way." She hung up, looking dazed, and started for the door. I steadied her with a hand on her arm. "You're in no condition to drive. Let me take you. We can talk about the case on the way." She frowned, rubbing her temples, and gave a tight nod. In the car, I learned her name was Chloe Davis. She'd always been a top student, went to grad school overseas, and had been back in the States for 3 years. She considered staying abroad, but the constant unrest and news of shootings had unnerved her, so she came home. The call had been from one of her tenants. A young man who lived in the building had climbed onto the roof and was threatening to jump. The police were there, but he wouldn't listen to anyone. Since the caretaker had skipped town with the rent money, the tenants had no one else to call but Chloe. A man's life was on the line. I floored it, and we were at the building in minutes. A crowd had already gathered below, a sick mix of people pleading for him to come down and others morbidly goading him on. As we pushed through, we caught snippets of the story from the onlookers. I heard the kid's story is tragic. His family had this huge company, then it went bankrupt and he's drowning in debt. I guess the fall from grace was too much for him. Really? He always looked so put together, dressed to the nines. And his girlfriend is a total knockout, tall, gorgeous, looks like a movie star. She took such good care of him, too. Cooking, cleaning. I live right across the way. I see everything. That guy would finish eating and just flop onto the couch to play video games while she did all the work. Exactly. And she was always buying him stuff. With a girlfriend like that, who sticks by you even after you lose everything, what's there to be so depressed about? For real. That girl just got back, and when she heard he was on the roof, she ran up there like a maniac. I feel bad for her, honestly. She's a great kid, so responsible and caring. Listening to the gossip, I almost felt a pang of envy for the guy on the roof. He had a woman like that in his corner and didn't know how good he had it. My mind was racing, but my feet kept moving. We took the elevator straight to the top floor. The police had cordoned off the roof access. After Chloe explained who she was and promised to waive the guy's rent for the next year out of consideration for his hardship, they let us through to help talk him down. As we got closer, I saw him, a young man who looked like a college student, his face streaked with tears, sitting on the waist-high parapet at the edge of the roof. A few feet away, a woman stood with her back to us. That silhouette. Why did it feel so familiar? Her voice was soft, coaxing. "Leo, please come down. I'll do anything you ask. I promise you. Right here, in front of the police, I'll help you rebuild your career. I won't leave you until you're back on your feet." The sound of that voice sent a chill through my entire body. My hair stood on end. That voice, that silhouette. It couldn't be anyone else. But you'll just leave me eventually. The boy, Leo, cried out, his voice cracking. After all this time, I've realized, you're more important to me than any career. I'll die without you. He was getting more and more agitated, and then he stood up. The wind was strong up there, and the brick ledge he was standing on was only a few inches wide. He swayed precariously. The woman shrieked, collapsing to the ground in terror. "Leo, I'll do it. You win. Just come down, please. I'll be with you. Is that what you want to hear?" The second the words left her mouth, Leo jumped back onto the roof, stumbling as he landed. The woman scrambled forward and threw her arms around him. And that's when I saw her face. The look of profound, agonizing relief was unmistakable. She stroked his hair, murmuring things I couldn't hear, tears streaming relentlessly down her cheeks. In that moment, my heart felt like it had been plunged into a vat of ice. That woman was Sophie, my Sophie, the woman I had cherished for 7 years. The world went silent. The only thing I could hear was the echo of the neighbor's words from downstairs, playing over and over in my head. I didn't snap out of it until I felt someone shaking me. "Mr. Hayes? Warren? Are you okay?" Chloe was gripping my arm, her voice loud with concern. I'm fine." The words felt like they were scraped from my throat. Maybe Chloe's voice was too loud, because everyone on the roof turned to look at us. When Sophie saw me, the blood drained from her already pale face. She staggered to her feet and lurched toward me. She only made it a few steps before collapsing, then struggled up again, only to fall a second time. Her eyes were wide with terror as she stared at me, her mouth opening and closing without a sound. Leo and the police officers rushed to help her up. I held her gaze for one long, cold moment, then turned and walked away. Chloe followed close behind. Sophie was taken to the police station to give a statement. Chloe offered to buy me dinner, but I turned her down. I felt so sick I just wanted to puke. There was no way I could eat. Back at the office, I walked past my staff like a zombie, ignoring their greetings. I went straight into my office, collapsed into my chair, and threw my feet up on the desk. A wave of exhaustion, so immense it felt physical, washed over me. I was too tired to move. I felt a deep, hollow sadness, but I couldn't cry. The woman I had loved with my entire being for so many years. How could she do this to me? Hours must have passed. My phone started buzzing relentlessly. I didn't have to look to know it was Sophie, finally done at the station, having settled Leo, and now trying to reach me. I just stared at the ceiling, not even blinking. It felt like nothing in the world could make me move. The phone rang for what felt like an hour, then switched to a nonstop barrage of text notifications. I didn't bother reading them. My mind was already somewhere else, back in law school. I remembered the first time I saw her. She was trying to rescue a cat stuck in a tree. She'd never climbed anything in her life, but she took off her shoes and, with a Herculean effort, shimmied her way up. Just as her fingers were about to touch the cat, it let out a little meow and gracefully leaped to the ground. Sophie looked down, froze in terror, and couldn't move. I happened to be walking by. I found a ladder and helped her down. To thank me, she insisted on buying me dinner. When she told me why she'd been up the tree, I almost choked on my laughter. What on earth made you think a cat needed you to rescue it from a tree? She blushed. I just saw how high it was, and I didn't think, I'm starting to think law school is a waste of money for you. With that kind of judgment, who's going to hire you? Okay, stop making fun of me, she muttered, ducking her head even lower. She looked so cute and flustered that I let it go. When the check came, she realized she'd forgotten her wallet. I ended up paying. She apologized profusely, promising she'd pay me back. I didn't think much of it and had forgotten the whole thing within a couple of days. But on the first of the next month, there she was, waiting outside my dorm. I was coming back with my friends after a game of basketball and saw her from a distance. As she walked toward me, my friends all smirked and made themselves scarce. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "That dinner. I forgot my wallet and you paid. I came to pay you back." She pressed the cash into my hand and, before I could say a word, turned and ran off. That was when I really started paying attention to her. It turned out that behind that ditzy, clueless exterior, she was a bona fide genius. Her grades were consistently in the top 3 of our entire class. But besides her intellect, she was famous for one other thing: her almost pathological compassion. I'd heard of clean freaks, but this was the first I'd heard of a compassion freak. The stories about her, most of them hilariously misguided acts of charity, with the stuff of campus legend. Honestly, if it weren't for what I saw today, she was a perfect wife. She, who had once dedicated all her time to studying, went out of her way to make time for me, always providing the emotional support I needed. After we got married, she kept our home immaculate. Sometimes, when I was stumped by a particularly thorny case, she could offer a perspective that cracked it wide open. The more I thought about it, the more my heart ached. The pain came from the realization that all this time, she had been playing the role of a girlfriend for someone else. Cooking for him, cleaning for him, and she had agreed to be with him. Fine. If that's what she wanted, I would give it to them. I sat in my office all night. After the initial storm of pain, a cold clarity settled in. First thing in the morning, I went home to pack my things. The 650-square-foot condo we bought when we got married. They could have it. We were broke back then. Her uncle had paid for most of it, since her parents had passed away when she was young. After my firm took off, I'd reinvested half my earnings back into the business and given the other half to Sophie to manage. The condo was empty when I arrived. It looked like she hadn't come home last night. I was just there to grab my clothes. I'd leave everything else. I stood in the doorway with my suitcase, taking one last look at the home we'd shared for 3 years. It was small, but it had once been the warmest place in the world for me. Just as I was about to leave, I heard the click of heels in the hallway. The door opened, and Sophie walked in. She was still wearing yesterday's clothes. Though she tried to clean them, I could still see the faint stains from where she'd fallen on the roof. Her beautiful, vibrant face was etched with exhaustion. Seeing me, her expression lit up. She didn't even bother to take off her shoes as she rushed over to hug me. I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. She froze, the smile on her face slowly dissolving. "Warren? What's wrong? I called you all night. You didn't pick up?" I explained everything in my texts. "You've known me for years. You know who I am, don't you?" Her voice was hoarse, as if she hadn't slept. She looked me straight in the eye, just like she always did. Normally, that look would have me pulling her into my arms, comforting her. "I didn't read your texts," I said flatly. "I was wondering why you've been leaving earlier than me and coming home later every day. I asked you what you were so busy with, and you said it was nothing. I trusted you, so I didn't ask again. Turns out you were with another man the whole time. I heard his neighbors say you cook and clean for him, that you take care of his every need, buy him things. And didn't you just agree to be with him in front of all those people? Fine, I'll make it easy for you. I pushed past her and headed for the door. She blocked my path, her perfect face a mess of tears and snot. Warren, listen to me. I did it all for you. Through her sobs, the story came out. Leo Vance was the son of the owner of that dairy company my lawsuit had bankrupted. He just graduated from college last year and had been working at the family business for less than a month when it all came crashing down. This kid, who'd been a spoiled, rich kid his whole life, was suddenly destitute. His mind snapped. He showed up at our home and slit his wrist right in front of Sophie. I was at work. Sophie, terrified, had rushed him to the hospital. A few days later, he came back, weeping about how hopeless his life was. He'd always had his family or servants to take care of him. Now, in his early 20s, he was like a giant infant, incapable of basic life skills. He cried that his family was ruined because of me, so I had to take responsibility for him, conveniently leaving out all the despicable things his family had done. And Sophie, in a massive flood of her trademark compassion, actually thought he had a point. From that day on, she started taking care of Leo's daily life. Warren, I was just taking pity on him, that's all. There's nothing else going on, I swear. She cried harder, as if she were the one who had been wronged. Sophie, how can you be so clueless? You know everything about that case. You were involved. His family got what they deserved for all the lives they ruined. It's called justice. Do you have any idea how many kids' lives they destroyed? The legal system was too merciful. They should have locked them up and thrown away the key. That family deserved to lose everything. I was so furious, I was just spouting whatever came to mind. And you agreed to be with him, didn't you? So I'm making it happen. He doesn't have to rent a place anymore. I'm leaving. You two can move in here. It'll be much more convenient for you to take care of him. At my words, Sophie's already pale face grew even more frantic. Her grip on my arm tightened. Warren, you saw him. He was standing on the edge of that roof. What was I supposed to do? It was a human life. He almost bled out last time he tried to kill himself. The man is capable of anything. He uses suicide to force you to be with him. And you agree. What's next? He forces you to sleep with him? To have his kids? Are you going to agree to that too? Or have you already slept together? Smack. A sharp, ringing slap echoed through the room. For a second, I saw stars. Sophie stared at her hand in disbelief, as if it had acted on its own. Warren, listen to me. I cut her off, my cheek numb and throbbing. Don't say anything else. Just think about what I said. I pushed past her protests and walked out without looking back. She didn't contact me for the next few days, aside from a single text saying she needed some time to handle the situation and would give me an explanation. I didn't pay it any mind. I checked into a hotel after moving out and was now consumed with Chloe Davis's case. From her account, I gathered that the marriage certificate the caretaker produced was dated at a time when her father's mental state was already deteriorating. He had good days and bad days. I focused on that point and subpoenaed the security footage from the county clerk's office. The video showed the old man looking vacant and confused the entire time. All his answers and the information on the forms were either coached or filled out by the caretaker. Less than a month after the wedding, he was dead. Even more suspiciously, during that brief period, the caretaker had transferred all of his properties into her children's names. 3 days after the paperwork was finalized, he died. Without notifying his own daughter, she had him cremated immediately and held a cursory funeral, even choosing the cheapest burial plot available. I started interviewing the old man's neighbors. They said the caretaker had seemed friendly and chatty on the surface, but late at night, they would often hear her screaming hysterically at him. One neighbor even saw her slap the old man in the park for spilling a few drops of water on his shirt while she was helping him drink. The neighbor had been so outraged she'd snapped a picture and posted it on Facebook, where it became a hot topic in their community group. With this, I advised Chloe to file a police report. The evidence was clear and easy to investigate. Soon, it all came out. The caretaker had preyed on and abused the elderly man, fully aware of his high blood pressure, but deliberately cooking him oily, salty meals. Once we had all the evidence, I filed a lawsuit against her for marriage fraud, malicious transfer of assets, and elder abuse resulting in death. Given the overwhelming evidence, the massive value of the assets, and the fact that her abuse led to his death, the court moved quickly. The verdict came down: life in prison without parole and forfeiture of all assets. The moment the judge finished speaking, the caretaker threw herself on the floor, wailing and screaming, calling Chloe ungrateful, the judge corrupt, and me a fraud who fabricated evidence. I'd seen it all before. I ignored her and her loutish, piggy-eyed son. We'd won, and Chloe had promised me a celebratory dinner. We went to the best high-end Mexican restaurant in the city. We discovered over the past few weeks that we both had a passion for it. I only won this case because of you, Warren. That's the 8th time you've said that today, I replied. You don't have to thank me. I was just doing my job. Honestly, I regret working abroad for so long, she said, her voice tinged with sadness. With my family situation, I could have just stayed home and taken care of my dad. But he was so old school. He thought a kid without a job was a sign of laziness and pushed me to go out and build a career. In the end, I didn't even get to see him one last time. Her father was her only family now. They'd long since cut ties with their relatives. Her uncles, in particular, had always coveted their wealth, thinking her father's fortune would be up for grabs with only a daughter to inherit. Her dad, seeing their greed years ago, had decisively drawn a line in the sand to protect her. Now, with him gone, she had no one left to watch her back. As she spoke, she began to cry again. I handed her a napkin and, to lighten the mood, told a few bad jokes to make her smile. Toward the end of the meal, she asked if I was interested in buying property. She was planning to sell one of her father's buildings and was willing to give me a great price. Seeing that my firm was still renting, she thought she'd offer it to me. An opportunity like this was too good to pass up, especially when she said I could make a $200,000 down payment and pay the rest off over time. After dinner, I dropped her home and drove directly to the place I hadn't been back to in nearly 10 days. The money I had was all tied up in investment for the firm. Over the years, I'd given Sophie millions. Whatever it took, I needed that money for the down payment. An offer like this wouldn't come around again. The condo was dark when I arrived. I tried my fingerprint on the lock. It still worked. I went inside, flipped on the lights, and sat on the couch to wait for her. The place was spotless, a clear sign she'd been coming home every day. Around 9, Sophie returned. Her first reaction upon seeing me was pure joy. You're back. Why didn't you call? Have you eaten? I can whip something up for you. Don't bother. I don't want to disturb you. I came because I found a building for sale at a really good price. I need some money. The moment I mentioned money, Sophie tensed up. She looked down at the floor, unable to meet my eyes, nervously fiddling with the hem of her shirt like a guilty child. In that instant, I understood. Your promise to help Leo Vance start a business. Don't tell me. She didn't speak, just nodded. All of it. She nodded again. Then there's nothing more to say. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. This property is critical for the firm. You know, we've had to move twice in the last 2 years because of rent hikes. You, of all people, should understand how important a stable location is for a business. With that, I turned to leave. Warren, can you just wait a little while? Leo's company just launched. As soon as his cash flow stabilizes, he'll pay us back. Forget it, I said, walking out. We'll talk about it later. She watched my retreating figure, but she didn't chase after me. Maybe she knew that even if she did, she wouldn't have the words to make me stay. As the door closed, Sophie finally broke. She slid down the doorframe and collapsed onto the floor. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were red-rimmed and vacant, staring at nothing. Warren, everything I did was for us, for our family. I was too scared to tell you. I was so afraid of losing you. Even though I couldn't get the money, Chloe told me not to worry about the down payment for now. I could pay her back slowly whenever I had the cash. I knew it was her way of thanking me, but I accepted. The constant moving had cost the firm too much business over the years. A permanent office would give us the stability we needed to really thrive. There was another, unexpected perk to the new arrangement. Chloe, my new landlady, insisted on cooking for me. At first, I told her it wasn't necessary, that ordering takeout was easy enough. But she said she never felt like cooking for just one person, and having someone to eat with gave her an appetite. I started to feel bad about constantly freeloading, so one afternoon when things were slow, I decided to treat her to a nice dinner out. We had just stepped outside when I saw her. Sophie. She must have been waiting for a while. She was wearing a pale yellow skirt suit I'd bought her for the new year. It was one of her favorites, an outfit she rarely wore. She was beautifully made up. She had clearly put a lot of effort into her appearance. When she saw me, she hurried over, gave Chloe a small, polite smile and a nod by way of greeting. Warren, I tried calling you 100 times, but it went straight to voicemail. You still have that terrible habit of losing yourself in your work. Don't you remember what today is? As she spoke, she reached for my hand. I instinctively glanced at my watch, a subtle movement that made her hand miss. My mind raced, trying to figure out what was so special about today. She awkwardly retracted her hand, saw the blank look on my face, and then smiled at Chloe. You should never marry a man like this. He doesn't remember anything important. Today is our wedding anniversary. I cooked a special dinner at home. Since you're here, why don't you join us? Chloe was smart enough to know a real invitation from a polite dismissal. She quickly made an excuse and left. Once she was gone, my face hardened. Wedding anniversary? As I recall, we got married in the summer. It's late fall. I don't think you're talking about me, your husband. Sensing the ice in my tone, she froze, her hand hovering in midair where she'd meant to embrace me. She looked at me with a pleading, wounded expression, as if I were the one bullying her. Warren, I know you're still angry with me. I came here today to bring you home so I could explain everything. Before she could finish, my phone rang. It was a potential client from a few days ago. He said he was at home today, but couldn't make it to the office, and asked if we could come to him. I hung up and looked at Sophie, whose eyes were filled with a desperate hope. It's a client. I have to go meet him. Will you be back tonight? I don't know. It depends on how late it goes. With that, I turned and walked away. The address the client sent was in a remote part of town, a seedy motel. I found a right room number. The door was slightly ajar. I called out a greeting and pushed it open, but the room was empty. As I turned to leave, something hard slammed against the back of my head, and the world went black. When I came to, I was in a dilapidated factory, tied tightly to a chair. Across from me was another man, also tied up. He wore glasses and looked like a student, but less like a scholar and more like a weasel. Unlike me, who was bruised and covered in dusty footprints, he looked pristine, almost meticulously put together. He didn't seem scared, just shot me the occasional hostile glare. That hit me. It was him, Leo Vance, the kid Sophie had been taking care of. Well, the great lawyer is awake. The speaker was a big, muscular man wearing a mask. We brought you two here for a simple reason. My buddies and I are a little short on cash. While you were out, I used your fingerprint to unlock your phone and call your wife. She'll be here to save you soon. Just as he finished speaking, Sophie walked in. She was trembling with fear, but forced herself to move forward, one step at a time. When she saw me, she screamed my name and tried to rush over, but the masked man blocked her. I brought the money. Let my husband go now. Sophie glared at the kidnapper, her eyes blazing with a newfound resolve, her earlier fear gone. How much did you bring? The man asked, looking her up and down. Her hands were empty. All my money is on my phone. Who's scanning who? Sophie's expression was dead serious. No need for that trouble. Just add me as a friend and Venmo it to me. The kidnapper pulled out his phone, ready to show her his QR code. Suddenly, Leo, still tied up, started coughing loudly and insistently. The kidnapper glanced at him and immediately snapped back to reality. Didn't I tell you 100 times on the phone to bring cash? Was this a grocery store checkout? All my money. It's tied up in investments. All I have left is what's in my digital wallet. As she said this, she shot a quick look at Leo. Leo coughed again, giving the kidnapper a subtle look. Well, since you came all this way for nothing, I'll let you choose one of them to take with you. Then you can go raise the money for the other one. This whole charade was so full of holes I almost laughed out loud. I had a strong suspicion that the bruises on my body were compliments of Leo himself. But I didn't say anything. I wanted to see who Sophie would choose. I never thought she would pick Leo. Without a moment's hesitation, my heart turned to ice. She told me she would raise the money to rescue me as quickly as possible. Then she and Leo ran out of the factory. I dropped the act. I laid it all out for the kidnapper, pointing out every flaw in their ridiculous plan and giving him a quick rundown of the federal kidnapping statutes and the decades he'd be facing in prison. Half an hour later, the kidnapper recorded a full confession on video for me and then respectfully escorted me out. The first thing I did was go back to my office and print out divorce papers. Then I drove straight home. Sophie was frantically tearing the place apart, searching for something. When she saw me, she ran toward me, ecstatic, but I held up a hand to stop her. She wiped away her tears, her joy looking genuine. But what did it matter? Just a short while ago, she had chosen another man over me. Warren, you're back. Thank God. You're hurt all over. We need to go to the hospital. She reached for my hand again. I put the divorce agreement into her outstretched hand. What's this? She took it, glanced down, and the smile froze on her face. Warren, what? Is it because I didn't choose you back there? Isn't that enough? No, that's not it. The kidnapper didn't say he was going to kill whoever was left behind. He said I could raise the money to ransom you later. All our money is with Leo. I was on him to get it back, to tell him I didn't care about his business anymore, that he had to give me our money today. He went to his office to get the funds, and I came home to see what else we had of value. I would have sold this condo to get you back. Then why not rescue me first and figure out how to ransom him later? What if the kidnapper had changed his mind? Did it ever occur to you that I was completely at his mercy, a piece of meat on a chopping block? And why was our money with someone else in the first place? My words struck her like a physical blow. Her face went ashen, and tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She had no answer. She had nothing left to say. I played her the video the kidnapper had recorded. The whole thing was a setup orchestrated by Leo, who had hired some guy online to scare her and drive a wedge between us. She watched it, shaking her head in disbelief, unable to comprehend that someone could be so malicious. Seeing her break down, I knew she needed space. I left the divorce papers on the coffee table and walked out. Life returned to its hectic pace, but with a new, painful complication. Two women were now bringing me lunch every day. I told both of them to stop, but neither would listen. Sophie would drop off food and then try to make small talk, her attempts to reconnect hanging awkwardly in the air. The moment I mentioned the divorce, she'd pretend she didn't hear and leave. Chloe, meanwhile, had started calling me constantly with flimsy excuses to sue people. They were all trivial matters. One time, she actually asked if she could sue the company that makes Oreo cookies because she didn't feel a sense of wonder when she ate them. I was speechless. One day, we went grocery shopping together. As I was loading the bags into the trunk of my car, I heard footsteps pounding toward us. I spun around just in time to see the caretaker's son charging at us with a knife, screaming that we were all going to die. I was about to dodge when Chloe lunged forward, tackling him. I reacted instantly, subduing him, but not before I saw a dark stain spreading across Chloe's shirt. Blood was pooling beneath her. Security guards rushed over and took control of the attacker. I scooped Chloe into my arms, talking to her nonstop to keep her from passing out, and sped to the hospital, blowing through every red light. After hours of tense surgery, the doctors managed to pull her back from the brink. A few days later, she was moved to a regular room. I was feeding her some soup when Sophie walked in. After she heard what happened, she finally agreed to the divorce. The day we went to the courthouse, she was dressed head to toe in black. After it was finalized, she stood on the steps and watched me walk away. Her expression transformed into something terrifyingly cold. "They all have to die," she muttered to the empty air. "Every single one of them." Sophie's prospective my family used to be one of the wealthiest in our town. But after I was born, our fortunes began to decline. My parents fell ill and passed away, one after the other. I went to live with my uncle and his family, but soon, they too were plagued by inexplicable bad luck. Finally, my uncle consulted a psychic. The woman told him I was born under a calamity star, that anyone who got close to me would eventually meet a terrible end. The only way to break the curse, she said, was to perform endless acts of kindness, to build up enough good karma, to protect my loved ones. From that day on, my uncle had me live in the school dorms. And from that day on, I became the girl everyone saw as a naive, bleeding heart fool. Having lost my family so young, I was terrified of losing anyone else. My misguided attempts to do good became campus legends, none of them flattering. Then, by chance, I met Warren Hayes. He didn't avoid me like everyone else. He was kind to me. He looked out for me. I was so moved that when he asked me out, I said yes. We got married after graduation, and for a while, we were happy. But then Leo Vance appeared, creating a misunderstanding that Warren could never forgive. There was nothing between us, not really, but I know my actions were wrong. I slowly, piece by piece, broke his heart. And then another woman entered his life. A woman who would literally throw herself in front of a knife for him. So I let him go. I signed the papers. But the people who hurt him, none of them would get away with it. I went back to practicing law. The compassionate, naive Sophie Quinn was gone, replaced by something much darker. I'd always been at the top of my class in law school, and now I channeled that intellect with a relentless, burning fury. Leo Vance, his hired kidnapper, and the caretaker's son. I sent them all to prison. Leo got the death penalty. The caretaker's son got life without parole. Soon, a new legend emerged in the legal world. A ruthless prosecutor they called the cold-blooded witch. People said she never smiled. Criminals who fell into her hands always received the maximum possible sentence. No one ever knew that she was once a gentle woman, just trying to save the people she loved.